Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our first webinar of 2021. We're so glad you're here with us today. My name is AJ Kuftic. I'm Principal Technologist with Expedient. Today, we're going to talk about going from hacked to back with Singh from National Auto Care. Real quick, though, quick housekeeping note. If you have any questions, please enter those down here into the Q&A panel. That helps us keep track of the questions. Our VP of Pre-Sales Engineering, Rob McCafferty, he'll be answering some questions around Expedient. If you have any questions during this for Singh, please enter those in there, and I'll be asking those to him at the end after we go through our Q&A. If you ask a question, you're entered to win a prize. That prize this week is a Bose SoundLink speaker. And all of this is being recorded. So if you miss anything, you want to go back and review something, you want to send this to somebody else, you can go to our website, go.expedient.com/webinar replays, youtube.com/expedient, or our Instagram feed, instagram.com/_expedient. For those of you who are new to Expedient, we were founded in 2001. We started as a co-location company, moved into managed services, and are now in cloud. We have cloud locations US East, Central, and West. We have international cloud deployments on customer sites in Australia, Germany, and Canada. So if our cloud locations don't work, we can bring those clouds to you. And we've been a VMware cloud provider since 2007. We have tens of thousands of virtual machines on our platform supporting over 1,000 customers. So we've been able to manage and build solutions at scale for over a decade now. But I'm not the star of this program. We're doing a Q&A with Singh from National Auto Care. He is their Chief Technology Officer. National Auto Care is a leading provider of F&I products and programs. Singh, welcome to our webinar today. How are you today?
Good, AJ. How are you?
Good. So can you give us kind of a brief explainer on National Auto Care and kind of what National Auto Care does?
Sure. So thanks for having me. National Auto Care, we are one of the longest operating providers of products such as vehicle service contracts, asset protection, limited warranty, tire and wheel. So any and all F&I product and administration that is available with either insurance companies, financial institutions, credit unions. For most of the auto, RV, power sports vehicle in the country, we support that. And you can just imagine, we don't have holidays on our side of the house because the dealerships are open every day. The contracts are being sold to any buyer of used and new vehicles. So pretty much our applications and systems have to be up and running even on national holidays.
So just so we're clear, Singh and his company are not the people who call you on the phone randomly. They're not calling anybody. So let's just get that out of the way. Singh is not calling you, I promise.
We are not, we don't.
So let's talk about, this whole hack to back idea. So National Auto Care went through a ransomware attack, right?
Yes.
Singh, kind of walk me through what that's like to go through a ransomware attack. What's that timeline look like? When you get up in the morning and you see the emails and oh no, something very bad has happened. What does that feel like? What kind of happened here?
So it was a unique experience in the sense most of us in our role, we plan a lot and we are all trained for managing a lot of different scenarios. But I mean, I wish none of us ever have to live this. And in our situation on Friday morning, October 2nd, around 7:30, it came in as a help desk ticket, really, that some of the early claims adjusters were not able to access some of their files in the shared drive and stuff like that. And within 25-30 minutes, we identified with notification that it was a ransomware. All our databases were encrypted all across the board. Could not access any of our 5 major systems that's on-prem or in-house. But the good thing within that, the silver lining was the 3 critical systems for day-to-day productivity, which is Office 365, the financial platform, and the communication system, which are all cloud solutions were intact, were not disturbed. But all our operations platform outside of that was pretty much shut down. And then it was Hail Mary for next 48 hours until we got everything back up and running.
So I want to key on that. So it only took you 48 hours to actually recover.
It took us 48 hours to get all our operational systems back up and running. Yeah.
So how did you do that? Because a lot of people, when they hear a ransomware attack, they hear days, weeks, months, and you're talking in hours. How do you get 48 hours out of that?
Um, I guess I would say first and foremost, we got lucky having 2 or 3 critical partners who were with us. I think a lot of that goes back to the discipline and focus and ongoing strategic conversation and decision making along with those strategic partners. The decisions that we have made before just came out to help us. And internally, we had to go through a whole process of we are really locked down what we can do to very quickly pivot into and say, okay, it's what is done. The harm is already done. How can we get back? And really focus on trying to go through step by step without having to get overwhelmed and just get disciplined about getting things back up and running. If you want, I can just continue and go through the timeline if that helps.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
around
so you get you get those first tickets, things are locked out. Who do you call?
that's interesting. I actually texted, did not even think about calling. I just texted 3 critical people. One, I texted a good friend of mine who's also CISO in the industry that, hey, I might be reaching out to you, might need some advice, what's going on. My second text was to our client partner at Expedient. We need to get on a call right this second. It's a ransomware. And the third text went to my boss saying that I'm sorry to be the messenger, but we have ransomware attack and we are in full lockdown.
That's got to be a terrible phone call to get as your boss. Just like, well,
It is. It is. It's a point in time you think about it. It's about the courage that you show to not get fearful and not do something about it. And I say that because that is a point in time where you have your leadership team having conversation of, if it's ransomware attack, what are they asking for? What do we do? How do we go about it? Do we really talk about paying, or do we try to see to get out of it? And can we get out of it? And as a leader leading the charge in that situation, it really becomes being very clear and honest about the options that we have and not leaving anything unturned or not investigating the options to be able to get out of it.
so
And go ahead.
let's dive into that timeline, right? So you've called Expedient, right? Who's your cloud partner. So kind of then what's your next step at that point, right? You've made the phone call. Now, kind of what does the recovery process look like and those options look like?
Sure. The initial call was twofold. One, we use the testable DR with a recovery point objective of minutes. So one thing was to make sure we are not replicating and saving the corrupted ransomware, the attacked encrypted files again and again and again in the system. And we also wanted to make sure that Expedient is aware that one of their partners or one of their customers is hacked, so they can protect the rest of the system so it does not propagate that way. The second part of it is it was a real time, first time that we had to go back and test the actual backup that was with Cohesity to look at the quality of it. Because yes, we do backup all day long, every time, but the real testament of that is, do you have the backup that can be brought back up and running? And I think that's where, from a recovery standpoint, that's where the biggest focus for us was. As soon as we had hashed out a game plan at 8:45, 9 in the morning, within like 2 to 3 hours, we already had a couple of my team members already looking at the backup, and I'm trying to figure out how good the quality of that backup is, what will it take to bring it back up and running, while I was focusing more on trying to get a grasp on what is the extent of what cannot be used right now. How do I limit that it does not propagate into other systems? So should we shut down the systems? Can I leave the cloud solutions open? Can we leave the phone systems open? Having ongoing conversation with the insurance company, we brought in an IR firm, incident recovery firm, to just make sure that we were covered from a insurance standpoint and otherwise also. So the endpoint solutions, do we have the right solutions in place, and all those, it becomes more like you have a 300 things that you have to go one by one by one to make sure you're not opening up the door before it's really cleaned up on the inside. On the Expedient side, I would say it was truly investment well done for the last few years when we actually were in the bind, and the true partnership nature of the team that came on the table. And I'll just go ahead and elaborate on that a bit. So once we found out that the network was pretty severely hampered, we immediately, working with our relationship partner with Expedient, in matter of hours, we were able to deploy an entire let me rephrase. Expedient helped us to deploy an entire new infrastructure that could be used to deploy or bring back all the backups, because we were not sure how bad the current infrastructure was. So we didn't have to worry about what we have to clean, how much we have to go back and go through the servers and everything else. So it's a peace of mind when you know that your partner is willing to spin up a whole new environment. Don't worry about whatever is already under influence. Let's get you guys going, and then we'll come back and clean up and figure out what to do with that. So that itself gave, more than anything else, gave a psychological help to say, okay, we have got somebody else who is partnering with us, who is in this fight with us to get us through. And then I would say for the next 24, 30 hours, the communication with the team, with Expedient, was as if I was working with somebody in my own team. It was so seamless communication, and step by step, we went up. We kept pushing, kept pushing. Next thing we know, Saturday night, around 12:45, 12:50 a.m., we finally see that all the servers are clean, nothing in there, and we could go live. So finally, 4:30 in the morning, Sunday morning, we were up with operation systems.
So what does that forensics process actually look like? Like, how are you determining that something was clean or something wasn't?
So like I said, we brought in IR team, incident recovery team, who have their own methodologies and their systems in place. We did engage the local FBI field office in the conversation, which they were able to very quickly identify. I think in matter of hours, they were able to identify the bad actor, where it was, what it was. And immediately after that, so like I said, I focused more on the conversation of how we managed to get back with Expedient in parallel. Everything that was in quarantine, we had to get that through. So we deployed a new endpoint solution. Now we are using Sentinel-1, and the incident recovery team helped us go through all our 150 endpoints, all the DNS spaces, monitor all the networks, deploy everything in that same, I would say, day and a half, to be able to make sure anything that was intact is preserved, and anything that had to be replaced was replaced. From an endpoint standpoint, just so it's clear, we lost only one machine, which was the ground zero, or patient zero, if you will.
That's wild that of your, all of the endpoints that you have, all of the systems that you had, only one of them was actually lost.
And that was patient zero. The solutions that we had in place, the moment it triggered, it had its limitation, because we were using Sophos before. It had limitation. It did stop it from going across the network, but it did not stop it from executing on that one machine.
So when we kind of talk about this, you're talking about this happening on October 2nd, but this didn't just happen on October 2nd.
No.
This had been sitting there for a little bit, right?
That's right. And that's where, like I said, the limitation of Sophos was this particular ransomware was sitting on that device for almost 28, 29 days. And that's how the forensic team was able to identify that around 10:40, between 10:39 and 10:40 p.m. on October 1 is when it executed. It connected to an IP address in Germany that is already registered in FBI database as part of one of the bad actors. That's how they were able to very quickly identify who it was, where it was, what it was. But then we went back and we checked every single individual device, and we did not find any other presence of anything else after the forensic cleansing was done. And that's why we moved away from Sophos and we deployed Sentinel-1 now. It did its job to the extent that it saved every other endpoints, but it did not stop the propagation into the network itself.
So when we're looking at this from from our standpoint, from Expedient, how did we help you? You'd mentioned a couple of things that we had done, right? We had spun up additional resources for you. How did our support staff really help through this process? Because you've mentioned that when we had our prep call, that your staff isn't that big, right? So how did we help you through that?
Like I said, I would say that Expedient, I don't know if it was the team overall or it goes back to I got lucked out. I don't think it was, because the reason I say that is one time is a charm, right? You had an incident and your partner gets up and really gets involved in that, and that's a one-time thing, and then you don't think much about it. But our experience with Expedient had been a little different. We can go before this incident and after the incident. Pre-incident, I would go back when in state of Florida, with COVID, we were asked to shut down everything within matter of days. We were able to work with Expedient, and actually in matter of hours, we were able to expand our VPN presence that we went 100% work from home in less than 6 hours notice. With Expedient, it does not just happen. No matter how good the relationship is, it does not just happen unless you have your partner who is willing to commit to it. Post-incident, it's not that the team out at Expedient who supports us is there only for an incident when it happens, but it's an ongoing thing. We monitor all our servers and everything on a daily basis. We have spin-ups. We have got some great business going here. And every time any minor thing that goes on, if it is not in the norm of what we see on a day-to-day basis, I can pick up a call, and it's less than 30 seconds. I'm already talking to someone who is already aware of everything. So, sometimes I have said this. I have said this a couple of times on the call when I'm with Expedient folks, middle of the night, that hey, how did you know all this? We already read it. But you were not on this call the last time we had the same issue. And he's like, no, but the person who just left me a note to call you back because you like that kind of interaction. And that goes a long way, right? If you have a partner where they understand the temperament of communication that's happening with the team and how do you keep them at rest, right? And that's the big thing about somebody who gives you support is, can I go to bed without worrying that whether I get the right level of communication alert or not.
So what was your business's reaction to being able to recover this quickly, right? Obviously, we've talked through the technical aspect of it and systems and forensics, but like when the business finds out that they had a ransomware attack, what's their reaction to it?
I would say the first reaction, like I said, was very uncomforting, and it took some time to synthesize. People talk about ransomware attacks. People talk about cybersecurity issues, but when it really hits and you actually are in a situation where your systems are not working and that you are expecting a call 2 minutes later with a critical client and you cannot answer any question because you don't have access to anything, it's a different kind of realization of reality. And the panic that comes with it is unbelievable.
Right. Panic is one thing, but like then once you recover, how do they feel about the solutions that you have going forward?
A very different level of confidence, I would say.
Okay.
A very different level of that one incident, even before that, even when the VPN thing I shared with you, that itself gave a very different level of confidence with the leadership team in the engagement we have with Expedient. After this particular incident and the way not only the way we as a team, us and Expedient, we together manage, even getting that feedback from my counterparts in the industry or other folks who have gone through this or heard about this, and getting that confirmation that, if you were able to pull this off in 48 hours, no matter what you did saying, it's unbelievable. And my simple, humble response is I was able to do that for two reasons. I had really good partners, both internally in my leadership team, to just give us that space to work and not jump the gun on the
Right.
front end. And on the back end, I had a partner that I knew they had my back. I knew that I could really trust 100%. And in that, I would say 48 hours, there were situations where the technicians as Expedient were saying that I don't think Singh, you should do this. Let's do this and this. So it was not like we had all the answers. We did. And there was certain things that we learned on why you should not do step one, step two, step three that you typically go through in a regular environment when you are hacked. It's a whole different ball game at that point.
So I'm going to take some questions from the audience here. We've got a couple in here that I think are actually really great. And you started to answer one of them. So I'm just going to keep that question going. So what processes were changed to try and minimize the chances of this happening again? You started to talk about like you can't do 1, 2, 3 when you're trying to recover from that. But like what sort of other processes have you changed? Have you done any specific training, that sort of thing around ransomware and phishing?
Yeah, definitely. So employee training is a big one. We did have the incident because the patient zero, which was the terminal that got defected, the employee 20 days back opened an email, which was a loaded ransomware. It got deployed on the machine. So there is no end of training. And the reason I say that, and that is something that we have started doing more proactively, is that the tactics of the bad actors keep changing, and we have to change our training with that. So the way they approach, the way the emails come in, the documents come in, the files come in, we have to evolve. And I personally have taken with NSE, we have taken the stance of being more at caution than relaxed. So we have started flagging emails that are external. And then we have a second level of flag that we put in the emails to let them know there is an attachment that we don't trust. We also deployed another solution, Avanan, that works with Office 365 Cloud. And just by deploying one solution out there, it has reduced our email traffic by about 26%.
That's impressive. It's so there are a couple, kind of things just parroting off of that Office 365 thing. So you mentioned that, these cloud platforms that you had weren't as easy to infect. Does that then change how you start to deploy your applications, or did the response from this, from Expedient in this ransomware attack, does that like still give you confidence in managing and hosting your own applications that way?
It's kind of a mixed bag solution, AJ. I mean, from my personal perspective, what I would say is I don't know. I can be 100% sure if I had the same setup sitting on Amazon or Azure for that reason, I would have a similar level of support that I got from Expedient. I have got my colleagues in other companies who have had similar situations, and it takes them weeks or 10 days just to get a response back from Amazon, for example. I just happen to know a CTO of another firm. I mean, they had some problem with VMware, and they could not get the right person on the call for 6 days. So it's not, see, being a mid-sized company, we don't have the deep pockets to be able to have people on staff. To be able to have that, it would be hundreds and thousands of dollars that we'll be spending on getting that. The question becomes, so all the new applications that we're developing, we are building cloud solutions, right? But anything legacy, anything that is operational, that is already hinging on, that cannot be replaced, and you have to have the infrastructure. I have two options. I spend $1 million and just build my stuff, which then I get into a whole different level of complications with that. Mm-hmm. Or I find a true partner like Expedient, and then, hey, it's a partnership thing, right? And they have already proven me. Why do I need to worry about it? That's one less thing. I can focus more on adoption and creativity and innovation on my solution and not worry on something that Expedient does day in and day out, which is managing the whole infrastructure.
So in kind of it all kind of comes back to that, level of support. In fact, there's a question here around the scope of the recovery. When we're looking at scope of the recovery, what was the rough number of servers and like around data footprint around the amount of storage that you were recovering there as well? And then how that kind of played into us building, additional resources for you to be able to restore to.
So the footprint that we're talking about is, I think we are looking at 12 different servers. So it's a set of 12 that we have in production. From a data standpoint, I would say it's somewhere around a few terabytes on each. Again, they have been built, like I said, we sit on 2 different legacy platforms, so we have to carry all that with operations and everything else. The biggest challenge was the file server itself that has got all kind of contracts and all those information going back 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. So it's a heavy load when it comes to infrastructure from our side.
So to kind of wrap this up, there's one last question in here around what SIM solution do you use? Do you have a SIM solution at all?
SIM solution?
So SIM solution, logging, security logging, anything like that?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
So it's okay. Basically, there were a number of tools that you guys had available to you that you were using. Obviously, you had the ticketing system come in. But, how did the FBI and this incident recovery team kind of track down where all of that ransomware came from?
Oh, okay. I get your point. So the tracking from the FBI and the IR recovery team was essentially through the DNS logging that we have.
Okay.
We do use the Office 365. I think except one application, everything else is through AD synced. We try to manage it that way, and definitely internally we don't have anything that is not connected to AD. That way, it's easier for us. With less staff, it's easier for us to manage user accessibility through the systems.
Got it. So Singh, I want to thank you for all of your time today. This has been a fantastic conversation. If any of you have any further questions around Expedient, you can reach out to me, aj.kuftic@expedient.com. And if you want to sign up for a test drive of the cloud that Singh used to help recover all of his data on, you can go to VMware or expedient.com, not VMware.com. It's our VMware powered cloud, expedient.com/VMware-test-drive. And you can sign up for a 30-day free trial, 128 gigs of RAM, terabyte of storage. Singh says it's great. And, and it made Singh sing. So thanks everybody for joining us today. Michael Berkeley is the winner of the Bose SoundLink. Michael will be reaching out to you soon. And I want to thank everybody for your time, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, AJ. Have a good one.